Who better than me?
Welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy, Base the Kid. Again, please like and subscribe, share the video, get a few more people, a few more eyeballs on. The views have been going in the opposite way recently, but you know, keep moving, keep pushing forward. I've been off for the last week, just kind of taking some time out for myself, doing a few bits and pieces, and there's been quite a bit of news that's gone on. But truthfully, I'm not a news channel. Like, I kind of talk about the things I want to talk about, so I ain't really going to touch on all of that, but there's a few things I will sort of kind of talk about. Normally I save like my main topic for the last thing, but on this occasion, no. All the praise, all the flowers, all the accolades, all the chat comes first. So first things first, big up to Alycia, the Baumgardner, for an amazing performance last night. I predicted that she was gonna mash that work, and mash that work she did. Now, when I first saw that fight got announced, I looked at it as like, raw. Why is Terry Harper coming back in such a dangerous fight? Like, to me, someone like Alycia isn't the person you just give a random voluntary defense to. No, like, that's a person if you're a champion, you only fight if they're your mandatory, and like there's no other option, because she's been dangerous. Yeah, some people can talk about maybe the level of competition she's had hasn't necessarily been the best, which is fair, but you just have to look at the way she moves. I mean, okay, last night's perfect example. The way she moved in the ring, everything was loose. Everything it all flowed. Like, there was no kind of wasted motion. Like, she was just comfortable and calm. Now, I've seen that in several of her fights previous. And even the fight that she lost to Christina Leonardo to, she lost on a split decision against someone that's like a naturally bigger girl, who has only lost, as far as I can remember now, to Katie Taylor at 140. And Katie Taylor is known as like number one pound for pound in the women's division, or two, depending on who you like to speak to. But yeah, consensus, I'd say she's number one. So if that's the only person you've lost to, and it was a split decision, which means it had to have been a close fight, questions then have to be answered. So I would then think, if they was talking about quote unquote no easy fights, Terry Harper's team I'm referring to, why would you go into that fight rather than just going straight into the unification with Troy? I mean, the deal was already signed. They said, oh, well, you know, at the end of the day, the hand is the hand, and if it goes, it goes. And if it's not good enough, it's not good enough, but we don't need tune-ups. So what was this? It doesn't make much sense, to be honest. Like, if you're going to put it all on the line, you either put it all on the line against a comeback fight, like just a regular comeback fight, or you go straight into the unification, because that's what you were screaming about before. And I can tell you now, Hyunmi Choi is good, but she's not on Baumgardner's level. Even with the defense, I've seen enough of her fights to know that when you put her up against someone that's confident and actually can box, and not only can box, can fight as well, she's going to get left wanting. So it would have made a lot more sense to just go straight into that unification if the hand isn't a problem and you don't take easy fights. Realistically, this was, I'm not going to say, no, I can't say it's a cherry pick, but this was a pick gone wrong. Like, you gambled on this one and it totally blew up, hence the bomb. But it's good that now sort of I'm not one of the only people who kind of knew about the talent. Now the whole of the UK is gonna have to acknowledge that, yo, I think when it comes to these American girls, questions I think have to be asked now about the training system in the UK. Now, it's a big conversation, which I don't know if I'm going to have a whole lot of time to get into here. But if we just see the amount of UK guys and women just getting found massively wanting on the world stage currently, it's a bit concerning. And I think that's a conversation I'm going to have another time. So you can look out for that one. But no, again, big congrats to Alycia Baumgardner. I did predict that she would win, and it would have to have been by KO. Just looking at what she's been doing the entire week, just the confidence, just the calmness. Like, there's not one time she looked a bit nervous or a bit rattled about being in a different environment than what she's used to. She just looked cool, calm and collected, just happy to be here, happy to have the opportunity to show what she's about. And I think that's going to continue. I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter from last night to tonight though, people talking, like tweeting Tasha Jonas or saying, yeah, well, Tasha Jonas will beat her and then she'll beat, and you know, she would have beat Harper as well. Well, as much as I did think Tasha won that fight, she got the draw. Like, she didn't win that. Tasha's 37, Baumgardner's 27. Baumgardner's clearly got more power than Tasha. And just by looking at the style, the way she was popping out a triple jab, like she was popping out triple jabs, like in motion. It's almost like she didn't have to think about having to do it. Literally, she did the triple jab just to get in range and then tap with the right hand just so you knew it was there. The hooks that she was landing as well, it's everything about it was just fluid. It was fluid and it was spiteful. I said to some of the guys in my Discord chat yesterday, I was like, Eddie should have known better than to put this girl from Doncaster in with a girl from Detroit. Like, the mentalities are different. It's not, especially when we know that Terry Harper she's openly stated, half of her marketing for this fight was, I was always struggling bad with my nerves and just not believing that I belong, and I've had to do a lot of work on that. So you put someone like that in with someone that just naturally exudes that confidence and that air of arrogance that I am the best and I'm going to show you that. That big stage was always going to get to her. Sooner or later it was going to get to her. But yeah, no, let me kind of leave that for now, because this isn't about beating down Terry Harper. Like, Terry Harper still, she's very good, she's very accomplished. I just have a feeling like the UK style, the UK training method, whatever is going on over here, like, I feel like it needs to be changed. It needs to tweak, because we've been seeing this over and over again. Jamie Mitchell the other week, another American. I mean, even Mary McGee caused Chantel Cameron some problems that probably she wasn't expecting, even though Mary McGee had been out of the ring for 20 months, just coming off of a knee injury. So, yeah, whether it's going abroad more, getting more training, more sparring abroad, bringing more of those foreign fighters over into your camps to understand what they're doing, mechanics beforehand, training and doing all this sparring with just other UK people from other UK gyms that train exactly the same way as you isn't going to prepare you for when the big tests come down the line. But yeah, before I even jump off this topic, so I saw a lot of people talking, they want to see like Baumgardner versus Mayer sort of as the final of this thing. Now, actually, it'd be a great fight. I don't think Michaela Mayer can handle that power, but Michaela Mayer's got the height and the reach. She's not going to be stupid enough to do the Maeva Hamadouche tactic and stay on the inside with someone like Alycia. So she would look to try and keep that fight long, box at range. She definitely wouldn't go in the phone booth with her. I could see that. But I would actually like to see Baumgardner against Serrano. To me, that would be a great fight, because one of the biggest criticisms about Amanda Serrano's current reign, and most of her reigns in general, is that even when she's gone up the rankings, like, she's fought for these vacant titles, you plucked these vacant opponents from obscurity, with some of them, whether they had winning records or they were losing records or they were just not the top people within that division. And in this current reign, everyone that she's fought, apart from, wait, who did she get the title off of? Oh wait, no, the WBC was vacant. And who did she fight for the 126 title? Was it Wallstrom? I can't remember. But besides that particular fight where she got that belt, and then the other one was basically given to her, all of the opponents that she's pretty much had since then they've been champions, but they've been champions from the weight classes below that she brought up to 126 to defend the titles against. So now maybe it would be a good idea if you, as the 126 person, take yourself back up to 130, where you've been a champion before, and you're supposed to be like the apex predator, like one of the hardest punchers, and you know your record suggests that you crack. Do that. I'd love to see Amanda Serrano against Alycia Baumgardner right about now. I think that would be a great fight. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Now, speaking of, well, it was a bad night for Eddie. Overall, if we're talking about in terms of plans that he had moving forward, Kiko Martinez, what was his record? Like, was it 32, 10 and 2, something like that? I mean, he's basically like was the Derek Chisora of that sort of realm, with the exception of the fact he is actually a former world champion, which Derek never quite achieved. Same with, I guess he's also like Gabe Rosado as well in that sense. You know, high entertainment, high value. Someone's going to come give it a go, but sometimes get screwed on the cards, which has happened to all three of them. But all three of them with, what, 10 losses, now 11 for some. But Kiko comes back and he upsets the apple cart in a very, very big way. Like, he tipped that over, because no one expected that against Galahad. Now, I didn't. Although I was concerned about the whole weight making thing, because even when Galahad faced Jazza Dickens earlier on in the year, he had to strip down boxes off everything just to be dead on the weight. This time he comes in an ounce over after stripping off everything, has to go and remake weight, and you can just look, you look at him and feel like the guy's dry. It's not even like, oh, he's coming overweight and he's like big and fat. Like, you can look at him and tell that there's not a lot of excess weight there, which tell you that he couldn't make anything under 126 and still be breathing virtually. Didn't look good on the scales this time. Didn't look good on the scales last time. Now, obviously, I know that belt, he'd been campaigning for it for a while. But if I was him, just off of how things kind of worked out in the last fight, I would have won it and then just tried to see if I can move up and parlay that into a title shot for the 130, because there's no way he needs to be at 126. He's killing himself to make the weight and has been for a long time. I don't know what goes on in the Ingle gym as to why he lets people make the weight the way that they seem to be making it, but that's not great, especially when it's the IBF, and in the IBF you have to do the rehydration, the weight the next day, and you can only be 10 pounds over whatever you weighed in at the day before. I mean, if they was gonna make weight in this insane way that they make weight, it would make much more sense to go down, like, I don't know, a WBA route or a WBO or something, because the IBF is not for people that cheat. And I don't mean cheat as in drugs, I just mean cheating as in not necessarily making weight the best way, because everyone does it differently, but some people and some methods are a lot better than others, and clearly that was evident last night. He was in full control of pretty much the fight up until sort of, what was it, round 5? Yeah. I mean, but there was a couple times he did take a couple shots, and like they visibly troubled him. I'm not gonna say they hurt him, but they troubled him. Whereas those same shots from people in previous fights didn't. Like, he didn't look hurt or bothered by anyone else. And Kiko Martinez isn't like the biggest puncher in the world. So you look at that and you say, raw, yeah, maybe like making this weight the way you've been making it is taking something out of you, and it's something that you can't afford to lose in the boxing ring, especially at the top levels. So the knockout was mad. The first knockdown, like, he's lucky that was at the end of the round. Literally, as soon as he got back up, the bell went about a second later before Kiko had a chance to try and unload on him. He came straight out in round 6, and it was just one punch, put him over. Not even a barrage, just like one solid overhand right, bang on the chin, out, cold. Head hit the canvas, body stiffened up, ref waved it off. So, I mean, I think he'll be back, just not at 126. And if he does try and come back at 126, he's a madman. You might as well forget that belt. Leave that belt with Kiko. Let Kiko do what Kiko's going to do with that. But congrats to Kiko Martinez. Like, 35, he looks closer to 50 if I'm honest, but you know, 35 and still getting strong. 2-time world champion. He did say that was his goal, to be a champion again. He said that about, I think, 6 months ago. I remember reading him say that. Well, he's got it, so congrats. Also, we had Gabe Rosado against, or Jaime Munguia, or should I say Jaime Munguia against Gabe Rosado, seeing as Jaime was the A side of that. I predicted that was going to go points, because Gabe doesn't necessarily get knocked out. He gets stopped on cuts and things like that, but he doesn't get knocked out. He's tough, and you know, he's another guy. He's from Philly, I think. So you know, them guys, they're built different. They're not trying to go down and, you know, take the knee and you know, get counted out or get stretchered out or whatever. He, you know, I always thought that because Jaime leaves himself open enough to get hit, Gabe wouldn't feel like, oh, nothing I'm doing is working. Like, what's the point of still being in here? He's always felt like he was going to be in with a chance. Now, I thought the scorecards were a bit harsh, bit wide, but when I started watching, to be honest, I did fall asleep, and when I woke back up, it was in round 7. I think I started watching the fight. So I saw Gabe doing some good work towards the end. So I figured, oh, it must be a close fight, because there was even some rounds that either Jaime was being busier, but Gabe was blocking most of the shots, so they was hitting gloves. They weren't really scoring as well. Whereas Gabe is like landing more eye-catching, telling shots that looked like they was visibly doing a bit more damage. But when as soon as it finished, I rewound it and watched it back from the beginning, like all the way through. And yeah, I could see, you know, just the activity from Munguia, and the fact that the activity is, you know, it's producing results as well. Yeah, definitely, he did win. But I think more 116, 112, possibly like maybe 116, 113 was fair reflection. The 117, 111, was there a 120? I swear there was a 120, 109 card in there as well. So they basically gave one round even, but gave everything to Jaime. And then I think it was like a 119, 109 card as well, I think. Yeah, bit harsh, but the right person did win overall. So yeah, I mean, he definitely won 8 rounds out of that. So yeah, big ups to Jaime. But yeah, I knew that I'd go to points. And he says that he's looking at Golovkin next. Well, I mean, he said that before and then not taken his mandatory route as he was supposed to. So I mean, we'll see what goes on there. Anything? Oh yeah, David Benavidez last night as well fought Kyron Davis. I ain't seen the fight because PBC have no UK outlet, and I wasn't paying for it on Fight TV or whatever other platforms there are. Like, I spend enough money as it is. But from what I heard, I think Kyron Davis's corner pulled him out at the end of the sixth. If someone can correct me if that's not the case. Again, I actually did bet that fight would end in under 6.5 rounds. When I was actually trying to do my bet for it, I said said that that Benavidez would win. Initially, I was thinking like sort of 1-5, but I wanted to hedge it, so I said he would win sort of within 1 to 6 rounds. But because I couldn't put that bet on, it didn't give me that option. It said, oh well, you can do it for like under 6.5 rounds for the fight to end. So I did that, which was a 1-1. Coupled that with a 2-1 for Jaime Munguia to win by decision. Yeah, pretty good predictions on those ones. The rest of the undercard, to be fair, like, I didn't know a lot of the people, so I didn't do enough research on those fights. So like the James Flint and Dom Hunt fight, for instance, on the Matchroom card was a good scrap. I mean, on one of the bets I had, I put James down just because he seemed to be the favourite, although I kind of rushed it because I added in some boxing from Thursday, one of the Japanese cards, because I knew where that one was going. That was a fight that I was interested in, so I wanted to add that in. But had I have done a bit more research on James Flint and Dom Hunt, seen that size difference, seen the fat man was a southpaw, I would have been like, okay, yeah, maybe I wouldn't have added that in. But overall, I did pretty well on the weekend. I won't complain too much. Any other real topics before I cut off this one, because I don't want to go on for too long. Oh yeah, the numbers for Canelo and Plant's pay-per-view came out. It said it's hitting around 800,000 US pay-per-view buys, and I think it's like $79.99. So again, Canelo's out there proving that he is the cash cow and basically the pay-per-view king, especially on the other side of the Atlantic. And supposedly it could go up to over 1 million sort of buyers when you take in the rest of the world. So he could definitely end up back on Showtime for his next fight. People saying, oh, he should fight David Benavidez next. To be honest, I mean, he could, but I think he beats Benavidez the same as he beat Callum Smith. They're pretty much the same, virtually the same styles, same size. But if I'm totally honest, I don't think Benavidez is making 168 again. Like, he came in at 169 for this fight, which he'd been training for the last 10 to 12 weeks, maybe more than that. So even though, yeah, it's not a title fight and it was no longer a title eliminator, like, you should still be getting in the practice of making weight. I can't see him staying at 168. I think he's 24, so he's not like he's a big older man. Like, he's still growing into his body. Chances are if he fights Canelo now at 168, Canelo will beat him and he will probably stop him, because again, he's another one draining himself down to a weight that he's too big for. So I reckon he's getting up to 175 within the next 6 to 12 months. Any other fights on? No. But yeah, they talk about Canelo. I mean, to be honest, I'd love to see Canelo Charlo, just to shut up all the Charlo fans who seem to think that Jamal Charlo has the style. He's the only one to beat Canelo. Like, he'll get ran through as well. Any weight. Like, he's not the guy, as much as people want to believe and hope he was or thought he might have been. And it's one thing I've kind of noticed. There's a little rant I'm going to go on, but I won't keep on it for too long. A lot of the people we see that we think are great, that come from the PBC, they're not matched against anyone that's not from the PBC mold, or like an obscure secondary, a secondary promotion that they can sort of have their way with when it comes to negotiations. Like, from now on, when it comes to PBC fighters, with the exception of Sean Porter, who's basically, he's been on the road, he's put in graft, but all the others, unless I see them beat fighters from Matchroom, from Top Rank, from even Pro Bellum, I guess Sky now or whatever, unless I see them beat fighters from all these other different promotions, I'm not rating them as highly as other people, because every time they seem to step up the levels within their own circle, it always seems to be a struggle, and none of them ever want to seem to take that work from another guy from one of the other promotions, which tells me that you either don't believe in yourself enough, your team doesn't believe in you, or they're just trying to preserve you for some high level payday so that you can kind of get cashed out and moved aside for the next person on the conveyor belt to come underneath you. Now, the only person that doesn't apply to is Jerome Boots Ennis, because he's not actually signed to the PBC. He fights on their cards, he fights on Showtime cards, but he's not signed to PBC, which is probably the reason why he's not getting good opponents to prove how good he is in the ring against. I mean, his best opponent to date was Sergey Lipinets, who, was a 140 champion, but he fought Jerome at 147 and looked super duper fleshy for 147. He's not a 147 pounder. But that's the best person that he's got on his record thus far, just because they're not allowing him access to the other guys of the PBC, because he's not signed to them, which means that they can't then market him moving forward. And they're not going to allow him to basically punch up their best guys and show that he's levels above when he's not under contract. And that's the same thing when it comes to them fighting top rank guys or whatever, because I mean, there's very rare times where Bob will not chance one of his guys against a PBC fighter. He'll even send them over there to go fight just because he believes that, they're the best guy, with the exception of obviously Terence Crawford. But again, that was literally just a battle of, that was more a battle of supremacy. That was a battle of, well, no, it's got to be on our platform because he's our marquee guy versus your marquee guy. And there was always a route that was going to stay away from him for that specific reason. So, yeah. Speaking obviously earlier on the bit, I was talking about Tasha Jonas. So she came out with obviously her reasons why she left Matchroom and the Zone and went to Sky and Boxer. Basically said it was down to money. She gets a commentary gig outside of fighting, which I can't blame her for. I mean, the comments about, oh, I want to earn my way into these positions, so I want to become mandatory to fight people rather than being given opportunities, didn't make a huge amount of sense to me, because number one, we still don't know what weight class you're fighting in. You said anyone from 130 to 147 can get it, supposedly. But the majority of the champions in all of those weight classes, as I said in the previous video, all come from Matchroom. So why would you now want to be on a platform that doesn't have anyone for you to fight, with maybe the exception of Michaela Mayer? I don't know. Like I said, Hyunmi Choi is still signed to Matchroom. She was signed to the Terry Harper fight. She's probably still signed to Harper fight if the rematch takes place against Baumgardner. If not, I'm sure Eddie would just switch that to have Baumgardner go and fight her and take that belt. Mayer, I'm sure, would rather fight Baumgardner for undisputed or for the belts than to take a voluntary against Tasha Jonas. So from the outside looking in, it seems very much like the main reason that choice was made was not necessarily about the boxing, it was for the life after boxing. Because again, Tasha's 37. Even if you say she's still got a few good years left in her, I can't see her fighting past 40. So she's got 2-3 years. She's been inactive for quite a bit. You would imagine maybe that's 4 fights, 5 fights left. max? Can she get into the necessary mandatory positions by that time? Who is she going to be fighting? Will the boards sanction the opponent as a mandatory? I mean, maybe, because she said that she's getting paid more working for Sky outside of the punditry stuff. So look, I don't know if it was the smartest move in terms of like actual boxing, if you want to achieve and be a world champion and say that's the one thing in your career you haven't done that you want to do. But in terms of the life after, yes, it does make sense. So I wish her well on that. Like I said, a lot of people know Tasha's one of the few Liverpudlians I actually do like. So yeah, I do wish her well on that, and I hope it works out for her to some degree. If she gets that mandatory position, then I hope she gets a fair shake, and if she can finally win a title, any of the divisions she's mentioned, hey, kudos. You know, I can only hope for it. But yeah, it just seems like hustling backwards, hustling in reverse, and I guess maybe a year, two from now will be the only way to tell if that was the right move or not. But yeah, look, let me leave it there because I'm probably rambled for a lot longer than I intended to. But again, big shouts out to Baumgardner. Like, it's been a while since I've actually seen someone get shut off on their feet to a point where, yeah, slept standing up. I think Usyk did it to Dave Allen in sparring. I think that was probably like the last time I've probably seen it. But yeah, usually I don't really give refs a lot of props, but shout out to Mark Lyson for jumping in and taking the sting out of that second hook that was coming, because that would have caused some major damage if that had landed properly. Again, big congrats to Kiko Martinez. I look forward to Kid Galahad moving up. I hope that he's well, because again, that was nasty. Gabe Rosado and Jaime Munguia had a tremendous fight. I hope both of them ain't pissing blood today, because that was a banger. And yeah, just let the good times. Also quick shout out to Dina Thorsland. She won her title match over the weekend. I can't remember the name of the opponent off the top of my head, but yep, she won hers. So yeah, more good stuff in the women's boxing, in the women's divisions. I think she's going to be around the same weight as Mitchell and Ellie Scottney, Ebony Bridges, Shannon Courtney. I think she's moved down to that weight, which I think is 118 at the minute. So yeah, good stuff. Let's let it continue. But for right now, again, I'll be back during earlier on in the week, but hardcore casual.